We're going to bring in former United States District Judge now, Vanessa Gilmore, for a little more analysis. Judge, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I have a few questions for you. You know, following yesterday's news, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed the Oklahoma Heartbeat Act. It's very similar to the law in Texas, and we've seen a lot of these sort of heartbeat acts and laws pop up. The one in Texas in particular is interesting because, as you know, it puts the onus on citizens and not the state to enforce it. Can you explain a little bit more about these bills that we're seeing popping up across the country and the impact they could have?
So the bill in Texas and the bill that has just passed in Oklahoma are a little bit different because what they provide is an opportunity for private citizens to bring lawsuits or claims against persons that participate in providing the medical procedure for abortions to women. The Texas bill actually allows persons to collect a fine or a fee from an abortion provider. The Oklahoma bill is modeled after the Texas bill, allowing civil liability and allowing private citizens to bring causes of action as well, in addition to criminal liability, felony criminal liability. So the unique part of it, though, is the aspect of the bill that allows private citizens to bring claims for civil liability and to collect fines.
So what we have seen over a number of years now are states passing laws that were in violation or or appear to be in violation of Roe v. Wade, laws that they knew were going to be challenged and would have to work their way through the judicial system. Also a series of what they call trigger laws that are on the books but cannot be enacted, but they're sort of waiting to see whether or not Roe v. Wade is overturned. It's a very coordinated effort that has brought us to this point. I'm curious, in your decades as a judge and working in the judicial system, have you seen a coordinated effort like this before?
Not on a single issue. And so this is what is going to be interesting, that all of these laws are specifically designed to try to have a case that will be able to get before the Supreme Court again. I think that whatever the final decision or the final ruling of the Supreme Court is on this issue, since we know we do not have a final ruling at this point, since that is just a draft opinion, whatever the final ruling ends up being, it is setting up the court to continue to hear more cases along these lines for years to come, because they have turned the issue back over to the states to do individual laws. And then that means that we will still have a situation where the cases will have to make their way up through the courts again in an effort to determine whether or not they will be determined to be constitutional later on or not. The Oklahoma bill that was passed yesterday is already being challenged. Even though the law passed, there is going to be continued litigation on that bill because even looking at the draft opinion, it does not settle every issue with respect to a woman's right to privacy and the application of this particular type of health care for every issue in every case. So yes, I expect that there'll still be more targeted laws, and I expect that there'll be a lot more litigation.
And just very quickly, your personal sort of feeling in regards to this leak. You know, many are saying that this will hurt or at least have some sort of impact on the ability of the Supreme Court to look like at least it's impartial, to look like it is not political. What do you think? What sort of hit does the Supreme Court take in terms of its reputation by what we've seen unfold over the last 24 hours?
And I think that that's a fair and accurate assessment. You know, right now, both the Gallup and Quinnipiac polls show that there's there's a 50% disapproval of the Supreme Court right now. We want to try to pretend that issues are not being decided along ideological lines. But, you know, the fact is the last two terms of the Supreme Court saw fewer 5-4 decisions than any other term in modern history. In the 2020 term, there were only 54 cases decided, and 12 of them were decided 6-3 along ideological lines. I think that the leak on top of that is a further erodement of any confidence in the Supreme Court, and that is really sort of a sad day for the court in the United States. But we are trying to pretend that it is not ideological, but I think that the last two terms do not support that factually.
Judge Vanessa Gilmore, thank you so much for your time.
Perfect. Thank you.